This is the news as of March 14, 2025. Hopefully, the Democrats aren't going to cause a shutdown of the government. They're voting on it now. It was, just last year that Democrats criticized Republicans, and rightly so, for threatening to cause a shutdown of government. Anybody with any common sense knows that if you don't have the votes to win, you can't just stomp your foot and cause a shutdown of government. Apparently, Schumer said he'd vote for the Republican bill just so it wouldn't shut down the government. And that way the Democrats avoid looking like hypocrites. Democrats really have to avoid looking like hypocrites. They criticized the Republicans who yelled, "You lie," at Obama during his State of the Union address. And then when that nutso-bismo Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up and yelled at Biden during his State of the Union speech, everybody with any common sense or a shred of decency thought doing that kind of stunt was symptomatic of a seriously deranged politician. And, if you're seriously deranged, as demonstrated by behavior, all of your political opinions are probably just as deranged. So, regardless of the political views, doing that kind of thing makes you, and by implication your political opinions, look idiotic to most voters. Well, seemingly inexplicably, the Democrats somehow humored Al Green, not the good Al Green. And Al Green got up mumbling something during Trump's address to Congress that nobody could understand, waving his cane at Trump. It made Democrats, and then he wouldn't sit down, he had to be removed. It made Democrats, not just the clown with the cane, but all the Democrats look like hypocrites and idiots. Voters don't believe that believing in your point of view justifies behaving like an idiot or a jerk. And you need to be consistent. Do you believe in shutting down the government if you don't get your way? Or not? Do you believe in shouting during the presidential address to Congress? Or not? Most of us really don't like people who behave like idiots being the ones making decisions for us in Congress. Well, speaking of buffoons, let's see what the chief clown is up to today. Trump could accomplish the negotiating that he claims to be so good at behind the scenes without creating constant chaos every day. We don't really need to know about every threat he makes and about how his negotiating style brings everybody to their knees. He just loves to be a star, to show the world how brilliant he is. I would just love for a day for him to try and go without bragging, without pounding his chest like a imbecilic ape who just clubbed a rabbit. I guess it's part of our days, our time, that when you score a touchdown or sack quarterback, you have to do some silly-ass dance to call attention to how great you are. I know there are lots of people who appreciate that kind of behavior for some reason. Frankly, where I went to school in Hawaii, Trump would get his ass kicked every day after school if he acted like that. So, let's see what undeserved bragging Trump is doing today. He just makes up stuff, by the way, because people don't know the facts. It's a toss-up whether they believe him or not. People that actually know the facts, well, it's like, for instance, did the U.S. give $350 billion to Ukraine and the European Union only give $100 billion? Trump claims so. But who knows? So if you just keep saying it enough and you choose to believe him, well, then it's a persuasive argument. Unfortunately, everybody who knows anything knows it's just not the truth. He just makes it up to justify criticizing the European Union. He keeps talking about NATO members paying as if they wire money to the United States for protection. They're not paying NATO or paying the United States. They're investing into their own military budget. You could argue that since the United States is the biggest seller of military equipment, they are putting money into the U.S. economy, but they're not required to buy military equipment just from the United States. And I can tell you this, when making a choice between who they're going to buy from, they will weigh Trump's insults and choose to buy from other countries' companies. Millions, for instance, of Canadians have decided to buy Canadian or buy European rather than from the United States. Trump calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau cost American manufacturers millions of dollars by turning off Canadian customers. I mean, Trump's like an agent from Chaos, the evil company in Get Smart. Chaos was always, their goal was to destroy America. Now, he could really keep his mouth shut and do the same thing he's doing now without turning off 3/4 of the world. He could get his tax cuts. He could deport people. I mean, the Biden administration deported more people in 4 years than the Trump administration did before that. But they did it quietly. But Trump prefers to be an agent of chaos, so that every day you wonder what idiotic thing he's going to do next. And he's very creative. He creates some new chaotic thing every single morning. Voters seem to have forgotten what it was like when he was president. I mean, do you remember the riots all over the country? That wasn't just because of George Floyd. Those same people, they're still out there and they're going to riot again. Trump's going to go out to a church and hold up a Bible again, talking about how he's going to eliminate everybody who opposes him. And we're going to go through the next 3.5 years doing that daily. Now, the last 4 years, with Biden, they were at least peaceful. They were stress-free. I basically quit reading the newspaper. I quit posting rants on Facebook and quit talking about politics. It was wonderful. Immediately upon Trump being elected, it reversed all of that and brought chaos back into government. You know, it's not even that I hate his policies that much. I mean, I do, but that's not the biggest problem. I understand, for instance, the frustration with the immigration influx. Reciprocal tariffs, it sounds logical. And I'm all in favor of the stock market climbing. I think, for instance, Ukraine has to face the fact that Russia is going to control certain areas. It's Russia versus Ukraine. Ultimately, who's going to win? I even understand Russia's claim that America agreed not to move NATO next to his border. I mean, we did. I understand Israel wanting to slaughter Hamas. I do know the history well. And I don't like I know it all because I took my class. Kids wearing Hamas clothing camping out on the lawn of Columbia University. I don't think it's fair for Bruce Jenner types to compete in women's athletics. And I hate the politically correct police canceling people because they made a bad joke. There's a lot of grievances that Trump people have that I don't really disagree with. But Trump's style is so obnoxious that I would rather tolerate the trivialities of the far left than be put through the chaos of Trump's way of combating it. Every day he comes up with some new thing that gets everybody with any sense outraged. I mean, yesterday I woke up to an article saying he was going to impose 200% tariffs on France and the European Union on booze. I mean, we need that booze to tolerate this presidency. I immediately thought to myself that I would not blame the European Union for banning the import of goods entirely to Europe. And then Trump could do that back to them. And then we'd have a world where we don't do trade with the European Union. It would crush their economy and our economy. And Russia would be dancing on our graves. I seriously wonder if Trump has that as his goal. He is an agent of chaos. And that is the goal of chaos. Chaos is the best tool of Russia against America. And maybe Trump has formed a MRGA movement, MRGA movement. Make Russia great again. No. So let's see what goofy things happening today. You know, I scanned the New York Times. They point out that Congress has ceded power to Trump, that funding for things like museums, boys and girls club, colleges, it's all been slashed out of the budget. And ICE, of course, is using an old statute that says if the Secretary of State believes in aliens' activities, could potentially cause serious adverse foreign policy consequences. They can deport the alien, even though they're legally here. So that's how they're trying to deport the Syrian kid from Columbia University, Mahoud Khalil. They're going to have a tough time convincing many of these no-nonsense federal court judges that some kid giving a speech at Columbia protest is a national security threat. Though some judges may be inclined to consider it a political question and abstain from interfering with the administration. I mean, governments haven't even used that statute before, except once back in 1995. But in that case, the guy was here on a temporary visa, while Khalil, he has a green card allowing him to stay in the U.S. permanently. Now, the Trump administration argues that Khalil is aligned with Hamas, which is designated as a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department. But the defense attorneys point out that Trump's merely trying to stifle dissent and protest in favor of Palestinian rights. So it's a question not of immigration law, but a free speech issue. I mean, can you throw somebody out of the country who's legally here just because they advocate on behalf of somebody the administration does not like? But the Trump administration knows that even if Khalil gets to stay here, they have scared the shit out of every foreign student. Meanwhile, Lee Zeldin, the new administrator of the EPA, redefined that the purpose of the EPA to say that the purpose is to lower the cost of buying a car, heating a home, and running a business. Apparently thinks he's been appointed to the Department of Commerce. Stock market, which was rapidly going up since Biden took office, has plunged since Trump took office, largely because of the chaos, the unpredictability of the Trump administration, especially with tariffs and the drastic firing of thousands and thousands of federal workers. Of course, Trump calls it a period of transition, that he's rebuilding the country. And I suppose he thinks he's supposed to tear it down before he rebuilds it. And he's accomplishing that. Trump said that discussions with Russia about Ukraine were productive and they're trying to work out a ceasefire. Kremlin spokesman said they're cautiously optimistic. Putin knows a ceasefire would primarily benefit Ukraine, though. And Zelensky said Putin has put so many conditions into the ceasefire that it couldn't really work out. In an ominous development, if you ask me, Germany has decided to make extensive investments into defense, into their military, in response to Trump's pulling back America's security guarantees for Europe. So Trump is responsible for Germany building up its military. That's just what we need, Germany getting all militaristic again. Give them a few beers and they get a little crazy. As the newly elected chancellor proclaimed, Germany is back. Great. Thanks a lot, Trump. In a aside, yesterday I was thinking about this push by Trump to bring manufacturing back to the United States. I don't think young kids these days are really looking forward to working in a factory. Sewing clothes and putting together machinery, working in the coal mines. It's much more efficient to farm that work out to countries with lower paid workers willing to work at any job. That's definitely not this Generation Z in America. You can't get the same worker at a coffee shop for more than a month. If they can't work at home for at least $20 an hour, the job's not good enough for them. These kids are not going to be staffing a whole bunch of manufacturing plants around the country. Unless you're going to pay them like executive workers and let them work 4 days a week and half of that from home. But I was thinking to myself, so why would we want to bring manufacturing back to America? Well, it just coincides with the AI boom. Apple's putting $500 billion into building plants here. So they're optimistic, and they're certainly not dumb. I think they're planning on building plants from the ground up, built to operate and use robots trained on AI. The number of workers they'd need would be a lot less, minimal. And they wouldn't have to pay them. They just need to keep the robots working, have enough workers to keep them working. And those would be high-paid, highly skilled technology workers. You don't have to pay the robots. So it can really reduce the price of products, which wouldn't be a bad thing. It's not going to put people back to work, but it may be productive and result in a higher standard of living for all of us in the long term. Well, I think that was my optimistic thought for the day. Maybe all those factory workers will just become workers receiving a government annual guaranteed income, which people have projected for a long time. Moving on, Sonny and Butch, the two astronauts who went up for 8 days and didn't come down for 9 months. We've all been there, haven't we? Hopefully get to come home today. Anyway, that's what's happening today. I'm sure by the end of the day, something dramatically bad will have occurred. Trump is giving a speech at the Department of Justice. I'm sure he's going to brag like crazy about firing everybody that had to do with prosecuting him or investigating him. I just can't stand listening to him. He's so full of it and full of himself. It just makes me nauseous. So I am going to tune out Trump for the rest of the day. Bye.